You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, welcome back to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast. Before we get into everything, make sure to hit that subscribe, hit the like, turn those notifications on so you don't miss any of these future videos. I'm your host, the Supercoach Brain, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Supercoach Matrix. Matty, centre wing, we're in for an absolute doozy in this episode, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, but yeah, there's just so many options. You can pick 4, you have to pick 7. Yeah, let's unpack
I think it's analysis paralysis, I think, a little bit. We've looked at these guys for so long that it's going to be nearly impossible to be 100% sure on who we pick in the centre wing. But regardless, like on today's show, what we'll do is we'll cover the top 5 owned centre wings. We'll talk through our premium options, the mid-price maniacs that we like, and the cheap options that you should consider in the centre wing. We're going to reveal our own centre wing as well on top of that. And mate, correct me if I'm wrong here, is Rapid Fire back?
Oh, I hope so. I love it.
I love Rapid Fire. We've got so many players to get through here, mate. Actually, I went through our notes and before we started here, and we've got 41 players that we're talking about in this episode. So
I can't even count to 41.
This could honestly go for an hour and a half. We'll do our best for it not to, because I know that people lose their attention pretty quickly, and I don't blame them. I do too. But, mate, let's talk tactics first, because it's one thing that we haven't really talked about too much in previous positional analysis pods, but I think it's relevant here because you could approach centre wing a few different ways. Me personally, my tactic is I'm going with one premium option and then I'm trying to find cheap options for my other 6 positions. How are you approaching the centre wing?
Yeah, so I've got 2 premiums and, some cheaper options. Of course, I'm trying just to be very aware that I have to play 2 of these cheaper options. So, I might end up splashing just a little bit more in a couple spots, just north of 300k, maybe between 3 and 450, just because you know that you have to play them every week. But centre wings are sort of rocks or diamonds, aren't they? It
is. And look, when we look at centre wing, a lot of the guys that we have on our bench are going to be 200k basement price cheap guys. And look, there are some good options and we'll talk about them soon. And it seems like everybody else has clued onto those options as well because they're pretty high owned, especially a couple of them. So mate, let's move into our most owned.
And I was like, why are you so obsessed with me?
The most owned centre wing is Paul Alamotti at 200,000, 45.6%. So he's nearly 50% owned, which, look, to be fair, that's pretty well deserved. The hype around Paul Alamotti has been huge. What are your thoughts on him?
Oh, just Google him. Have a look at a picture of him. He looks like a man mountain playing. He looks like second rower playing in centre wing. I did watch him a little bit in those trials, and yeah, they seem keen on him. Gus can pick him. At 200k, there's no risk.
No, I think the only risk we have with any of these guys that we're going to talk about, we'll probably talk about this now, is that there's a risk that they don't perform in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. They get dropped. They're never seen again. Isaiah Tass was a very, very long burn for me last year when he played 2 games and I thought, yep, this guy's going to be good. I picked him up the first time that he played and then I sat on him for about 6 weeks before he saw any field time to get that price rise again. And there were a couple of those. Trent Peoples, I'm scarred for life from Trent Peoples because I brought him in thinking that he was going to be a lock to get some 80-minute
Are we still waiting for his price rise?
Yeah, I think so. I think it kicks in 2025, I'm told.
Oh, cool.
So, we'll get that eventually.
Good. But, that's in Super League Supercoach, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I just say we did these notes a few days ago. Paul Alamotti is nearly 50% now. He's just gone up 5%. So we should.
That's completely fair. He's in my team at the moment. We'll reveal our whole team at the end as we go. But 200k, basement price, cheapy, centre wing, locked into the centre wing position. The Bulldogs are incredibly high on him. The bloke looks like Tavita Pangai Jr. in the centres. His ownership should be probably higher, to be fair. And once Team List Tuesday confirms that he is in this squad, I guarantee you that he goes plus 60% owned. Has to. He absolutely has to at his basement price. Mate, take us into the second guy.
Yeah, we've got Cam Pereira from the Titans. He's 200k. In the last week, he's went up 6%, so he's 46% owned now. And the guy just looks like an absolute jet. I watched that game against the Dolphins, and it wasn't against, fantastic competition. But looking at him out in the wing, didn't he look electric?
Incredible. Serious player. He apparently touted to be the fastest player on this roster. There's some quick guys over at the Gold Coast. So, mate, the guy's got serious talent. We saw it in the trials. And look, you don't want to overreact to the trials, but to be fair, I love overreacting to trials because it's the only football we have at the moment that we can be excited about.
Yeah, but just like he didn't look to take a step out of place. He looked like somebody that had been there for 5 years. They trusted him. I think the Titans are going to be a little bit better. If he was 200K and I wasn't that confident in him, I would still have him in my team. But the fact that he looks like a guy that you could play against some easier teams.
I'm going to compare him to a guy like Alex Johnston, Josh Addo-Carr mold, where we know that his base isn't going to be monstrous, right? He's not going to be a massive worker, but we know the Titans love to score points. We've seen that in the trial. We've seen that all at the back end of last year. They love just attacking brand of football. They love throwing the ball around. There's going to be plenty of opportunity on that left wing for Cam Pereira. I'm incredibly excited for him. He could easily be Cheapie of the Year. Actually, you know what? I'm going to call it now. He will be Cheapie of the Year, and he's going to be the guy that gains the most cash. Yep. Better than Josh Schuster. He will be Cheapie of the Year, and he's a guy that people will be thinking when he gets to 500K, is he worth keeping for the rest of the year?
Yeah, it looks like an absolute jet.
For sure.
Is he on Fafita's side?
No.
No,
Left.
he's on the other side.
Left.
Yeah, bit of an upgrade from Jermaine Asako.
Just a tad. Mate, your mate, Jermaine Asako, you love him. You love Jermaine Asako.
Yeah, he's a sharpshooter.
He is. I don't know whether you're going to get many opportunities with him this year playing with the Dolphins, but anyway. Mate, number 3 on this list of most owned is Chance Nickel-Klokstad at 327,000, 38.9% owned. I'm not sure which direction that's gone in the last few days.
It's actually gone down.
Look, that aligns with my thoughts personally. The reason he's touch and go for me, look, on the surface, you look at a fullback that you can name in the centre wing and everybody gets a little bit excited about it. He's in my team, mind you, right now at this point. But there's a risk here that he shifts to the centres. And the reason for that potentially is that the reality is the New Zealand Warriors, they're not going to be amazing. They're not going to be a team that competes for the 8. And their edge defense is woeful, terrible, horrendous. And Chance Nickel-Klokstad is a relatively good defender. So do they move Chance Nickel-Klokstad into the centres to plug a hole and stop the leak of points down the edge? I don't know whether they do that obviously straight away. I think he probably gets named at fullback on Tuesday, but there's a risk at week 3, week 4. They could easily move him to the centres, which is a major concern for me. And if he gets named in the centres, he's a no-go for me personally. But I know you feel a little bit differently about that than me.
Look, I just look around that 300K price tag and I don't see much else that I would be willing to take a gamble on. I think even at centre wing, I think he has the pedigree. Like, what are we looking at 300K? Like, you're looking at spending 50K extra for our boy Asako. You're looking at spending 50K extra for Grassstains Charlie. I'm bit off Hayes Perham at the moment. You're looking at your Jake Avarillos. Yeah, there's just not much else around that 300K price tag that I'm that happy with. I don't like the Rabbitohs draw. We'll dig into that later. I do think that he's going to be playing fullback, and I'll probably, it'll be touch and go with that decision. But if he lines at fullback, he's a lock for me because I think he wants to be there. I think the Warriors will play some better footy this year. But yeah, centre wing, I'll probably toss up between, say, him and Avarillo or something like that, which I think is much of a muchness. I like him better than like Tommy Talau or something like that. He's a bit of a turnstile from what I've seen. So
yeah, he is. That's an interesting one. But no, I think CNK's in my team. If he lines up at fullback, I'll keep him. We'll start the season with him and we'll adjust from there as we go. But there is merit to go against him with the other options that we're going to talk about soon. Mate, another guy that I'm going against personally, and we've made our feelings very known about the Hammer. over at the Dolphins. Is he still 34% owned? Do you want to quickly check? Sorry, I'm in a draft right now, which is a ultimate juggling act from me, but we'll see how we go. 330,000.
He's 28%, so he has come back about 12% in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe people are doing a bit of research, yeah.
People are listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports podcast and basically taking on board the fact that Hammer is the ultimate trap. My notes here says Trap City. So, look, I think we talked about it a lot when we talked about the Cowboys. We also talked about it a lot when we talked about the fullbacks. But, mate, you've got a guy that at fullback, I think he averaged, 35 or something, 36 for the Cowboys at fullback in the, third best team in the competition, and we're expecting him to hopefully improve on that at the worst team in the competition. It's a stretch.
Yeah, I just don't think there'll be a lot of points coming out of the Dolphins. Like, it is exciting. Like, the first thing I did when I uploaded Supercoach was add Hammer, add Tyrell Sloan, and then you just start to think about these. They're needing to shift. Oh, well, not the Dolphins particularly, but some of these other teams are needing to shift and change, their fullback because they weren't very good. They don't have somebody to plug and play. Look, Hammer might not even be at fullback by the end of the year.
I'm going to say that he won't be at fullback by round 5.
Jeez, you do have
but we need to
in this.
But we need to remember that Tessie knew that they didn't pay. He wasn't cheap. They paid money to get this bloke. We know that Tessie New loves playing fullback. Tessie New also is a pretty poor defender in the centres. So there's an easy fix for Uncle Wayne there to go, oh, look, you know what, this centre, my edge defence is a little bit leaky. We see that Tessie New's struggling a little bit on D. Hammer, we can easily plug him in. We'll just swap him over.
I think Hammer's better in the centres, don't you?
I do.
Not just Supercoach, just real life.
Yeah, he averaged, let's talk Supercoach. He averaged more points at centre for the Cowboys than he did at fullback, which is incredibly insane when you think about the amount of points you can generate in the fullback position just in runs. But yeah, no, it's a no from me. I can't take Hammer with so much going on in that side, and also Tessie New breathing down his neck for that position. It's it's a fade for me.
You can say the same about CNK and the Hammer. If we have to come in 3 weeks' time and eat humble pie, I tell you what, it's easy to find 330k. Like, there's no risk not to have him. At 330k with some of the other cheapies that we're going to be talking about, he's in your starting 17.
Yeah, that's true. You can't not play him. You can't have a 330 guy in the centres on your bench without a reserve armband. There's no point. Yeah. Otherwise, you may as well just find a 200k cheapie, which there's a few. Yeah. So, and look, a lot of these guys we're talking about as if we know what the lineups are going to be on Tuesday. We don't. So we'll reassess a lot of these options and a lot of these things because it looks like this is probably the most uncertain position. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matty, in terms of what Teamless Tuesday can bring us. There's a lot of things here that could completely go against what we expected and completely throw teams into turmoil.
Yeah, like centres are just one of those positions where you can just pick someone up from New South Wales or Queensland Cup and, and us not know too much about them, and they've just been good at training and the coaches just inject them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like, I reckon there's the least amount of risk of just putting in a centre wing from reserve grade. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. There's some really good downgrade options here eventually down the track as well. So, and we know that centre wing is prolific for having mid-year. You've got that bottom 200k cheapie that comes in and makes their debut, and it's such an easy downgrade knowing there's been an injury on the wing or in the centres or whatever, and there's a guy that's going to come in at basement price that you can downgrade to that's going to get an extended run in the team. And we look at the perfect example is Taylor May last year. When he came in, mate, it was bottom dollar or pretty close to bottom dollar. I think he was a little bit off it, but he plugged in. You could plug and play him every week. You knew that Penrith winger was going to get plenty of ball and it was going to get opportunity on the left edge. So you could just chuck him in. And there'll be another Taylor May this year, I guarantee you, that will not start round 1, but will be injected into teams at between round 5 to 15.
Yep, that's it.
Number 5, mate.
Oh, mate, let's talk about the Cowboys' run. The first 13 games, I think I've mentioned, this is the 201st time I've mentioned it, actually. My team's stacked with Cowboys, and I want their goal kicker. I reckon they're going to score a lot of points in that 13 weeks. I think it is somebody that I'm going to be looking to move on from. because, I sort of hate that origin period. They're playing all their easy games first up. I think it'd be smart not to hold throughout the whole year. But I tell you what, I want those points on the board. When they're playing a Thursday or Friday night game, I'm going to put the VC on him because I'm not rolling, as you've heard in our other pods, I'm not rolling Nico and Cleary. I think that I'll play the VC on him a few times. A bit risky to play the C, but I think there's going to be a lot of points for the old running back.
There will be. You're not wrong. It's too enticing not to grab the goal kicker from the team that finished third last year and has the best run to start the year.
Yep.
It's just, you just can't avoid it. He's a pick and stick. You can easily keep him through Origin if you really wanted to, but I think the coaches that are pretty clued on will be looking to move on a few of these guys that are going to be playing Origin and having rests through the middle of the year for guys like your Clint Guthersons, like your Parramatta players that are going to be a little bit more reliable and play those major buy rounds through the middle of the season. So
I think that's a smart way to use trades. Honestly, if you have those luxury trades and you do the math in your head and you've got them saved up and don't have to pivot so much at the start of the year, and that's what we're going to try to do. That's what our advice is going to try to get you to do, so that you can save those trades early so that we make the pick going into round one. We're going to do a TLT show, which will be very important. It'll probably be our most important show yet. But yeah, I've got Val in my team. I didn't to start because I was looking to go cheaper, much like you're planning to do. But I'm just too scared not to have Val Holmes. When I look at those first 13 games, no buy. Yeah, too scared.
Yeah, I had Brian To'o instead of Val Holmes for a lot of this preseason. And just recently I found a way to get a little bit of extra cash. And the first thing that I did with that extra cash was go up to Val Holmes. And that's not discounting Brian To'o at all. We know Brian To'o is quite popular. We'll talk about him soon. And there's a reason why he's popular. But you've got to look at what Val Holmes did last year and look at their run, look at the draw, look at the logic behind the pick. It's a pretty easy one for me personally to just ride that for the first 8 to 10 weeks.
So in the last 4 days, he's went up 4.5%.
Yeah. And look, these most owned guys are going to go very high or very low over the next few days. There's no in between. I think that they'll continue to go up. The guys that are popular, the good options like your Val Holmes and your Campariras and your Alamotis, they're going to continue to go up leading into Teamless Tuesday as people tweak their teams. And then you've got your Hammer and your C and K and a few other options that'll probably start to trend downwards over the next few days as well. So, mate, premiums. And before we go into premiums, for just a reminder for everybody, we've got our unlimited group. The code is 451840. You can go into the running and try and beat us, try and beat the Supercoach community and win yourself a Supercoach ring at the end of the season and jump on the podcast with us at the end and teach us all your secrets. So plenty of incentive involved. So jump in that's 451840 into our unlimited group. Mate, let's move on to the premiums.
How much is this, Marie?
It's very expensive.
We've got a lot of players here to get through. If I count them, we've got about 14 players listed here that you could consider to start with in the centre wing. Now, the first guy, it's easy to not start with him because he's a fractured jaw. Joey Manu. Did you have Joey Manu last year?
No, I didn't. I faded him all year, and it did. Yep. I essentially got to the point where I had to choose between the number one most expensive guy in this list and the number two most expensive guy with the list, and I went with number two. I wasn't disappointed. So.
No, you wouldn't have been. Mate, Joey Manu, 9% owned at the moment, 801,000. I don't think people are prepared to spend 801,000 in the centre wing this year, which is fair enough when you've got guys like Val Holmes at 80k cheaper. You've got Brian To'o at about 100. What's the math? 180k cheaper.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going if I'm choosing two premiums personally. But there is merit for a lot of these other guys that we're going to talk about soon.
So Joey Manu, the second that I see Tedesco hurt, I will find the money, reshuffle, and plug in another one of those fullbacks that I really want, but you only have two positions. So I think Joey Manu, we will watch and see him all season. He does score well in the centres. I think he scored 200 in the centres before. But yeah, we just need to just wait and see. You can't start with him, not with that broken jaw.
No, not at all. But the one thing about Joey Manu is he doesn't really play like a traditional centre. They've given him a bit of a license to rove either side of the ruck. He doesn't just sit at right centre and wait for the ball like a Tony Staggs does. He will find the ball. He will move over. You'll see him taking runs on the left edge. So I think with Joey Manu, when he gets to a point where his price drops enough, and I'd say probably around that 650 mark, I would start to consider getting Joey Manu in my team, regardless of whether he's playing fullback or not. Yep. Because for me last year, he played centre, and I got a little bit lucky through the middle of the year where Tedesco played Origin, Joey Manu played at the back, and I captained him one week and he got 100 and ridiculous. So he's a guy that you have regardless of what position he's playing because he just demands the ball. And also, he doesn't have Suwali over that right edge anymore, so I feel like it's going to be his edge. He's going to definitely be taking a lot of attention over that side. Yeah. So
800 is just a lot of money.
It is. He's got to be cheaper than that to start with him or to consider him for sure. Mate, you had number 2. Take us away.
Yeah, I had Ruben Garrick, and he was so good. He is one of those guys that could be nearly better at centre than he is at fullback. He is a goal kicker as well in a really good team. Mate, he averaged 70. He's just a guy that I'll watch. I just think Val Holmes is better value. But yeah, if Manly are a really good team, Ruben Garrick are going to score a lot of teams. We're sort of touting Manly to be that sort of 10 to 12 team. If they're better than that, if they're a top 8 side, Ruben Garrick is going to score a lot of Supercoach points.
I think with Turbo back, he's going to space the field a little bit more. You know, he's going to demand attention, right, whenever he has the ball. So that's going to create opportunities either side, I think. Does that mean Ruben Garrick gets a little bit more opportunity on the left wing? It probably does.
He could be the rare beast that might actually be a better winger than he is than fullback. Well, not just in real life, in Supercoach. Yeah, and it's the turbo effect. It's the turbo effect.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, with no turbo on the side, you can pretty much just swamp the fullback, knowing what they're going to do there with those sweeping plays. You can put all your attention on Garrick, and that's why Tuipulotu and Kohler and all that, Jason Saab and all those guys got opportunity last year, is because they knew that they could easily rely on the fact that Garrick was going to be the one that was going to be making most of the plays in that team. So with Turbo back, it unlocks Garrick, I think. I've toyed around with trying to fit him into my team at some point, but I just can't go without Val Holmes, and I need to choose between one of those two. It doesn't make sense to antipod Val Holmes with that run.
Yep. No, I totally agree. That's the way that I've gone as well.
So with Val Holmes, obviously we've already talked about him. He's the third highest priced centre wing at $724. Alex Johnston. Now, he's 713k and he's 6% owned at the moment, and he sits in that very high scoring, low base kind of mold of centre wing. But let me give you a stat, right? And I was incredibly surprised when I found this out today when I was doing a little bit of a research before we hopped on. He only scored 50 or less 6 times last year. He only went under 50 6 games out of 25. That's much more consistency than I expected from Alex Johnston. I thought there would be some sub-20s in there, but there weren't. I was looking for them and they just didn't pop up.
Well, that does explain the price tag, really. 713k is a lot of money, though.
You've got to be confident that the Rabbitohs are going to score a lot of points in the first 6 rounds, really, to consider him, and they won't because they've got a really tough run.
I think that first 6 weeks, you can hope that he comes back. And if you're a Rabbitohs fan, you'll be watching a lot of their games. I think a lot of their games are primetime too. If you're just watching on Channel 9, you'll get a few of them. And you can just see him come back to 600k and you just want to add him. You know, one of these blokes have maybe risen to 500k. You'd find the 100k for the pedigree that is Alex Johnston.
I think we wait until Rabbitohs have a nice run of games. We have a look at the draw. I'll be keeping a very close eye on that draw for the Rabbitohs because they start the year incredibly tough. But there's bound to be, I haven't looked, but there's bound to be a nice run of games for the Rabbitohs, and you pick Johnston up straight away, and you'll probably find a way to get Latrell in your team as well at that point because their left edge is as potent as any left edge in the competition. I'd probably say even more potent than the Penrith Panthers.
Yeah. I think that they do have a late buy, though. So even if you have him, I think and you feel like you're gonna be playing finals footy, I think you have to move him on. If I remember correctly, they've got a round 26 bye. So if you're playing semi-finals and you've got a bloke that's worth 700k, you better have those trades saved up.
So head-to-head finishes in round 26 this year. So it always finishes the week before the end of the season to avoid all those restings and everything. So yeah, you're not going to want any Rabbitohs players in your team come the run home really, or getting close to the run home. If you have Latrell
and him and Rabbitohs have gone on this amazing run, you just have to make sure that you have 2 trades.
That's right. And the problem is I never have 2 trades by the end of the year. Mate,
I haven't yet.
Fat donut.
I haven't yet.
The next guy is his mate. Now, I'm not quite sure which side Campbell Graham's going to be playing on, whether it's left or right. I think it might even be left, but he's 664,000 at 2%. I had him last year until he ended up with a broken jaw and I had to trade him out. He's got the best base out of the premium centre wingers in the competition. 37 points per game in base. So the guy is just a workhorse. He gets his work in, he gets his runs out of his out of his own 20. He's a guy that if you want a safe 50, you know you're going to get that from Campbell Graham, but that's not really what I'm looking for in the centre wing. Are you looking for those safe base players?
Not really. I'm looking for some upside, and for 664k, if there was a bloke that was sub 500, floating around that 500, and you were throwing that base stack, my ears would prick up. But yeah, no, not looking to enter the Sandman.
No, not at all. Mate, next guy has been floating around in teams for a while now, Nick Meaney. Now, and obviously the big relevance here is that there's no Ryan Pappenhausen to start the season, which means that Nick Meaney is going to be playing fullback. He's going to be goal kicking. The one thing about Nick Meaney is that I'd actually prefer him to be on the wing. So he's a little bit of Ruben Garrick for me. I feel like he's better on the wing than he is at fullback.
Yeah, I wonder if he's better on the wing or if the team is better when he's on the wing. Like, he's a formidable fullback. I think he's fairly decent. And if he was on a worse team, but you're just used to comparing him against Pappy all the time, and he's just not there. And,
yeah, of course. No, not many are.
There's always the risk, even at fullback, that they do move Munster back. If they lose 3 games in a row, Munster will be playing fullback.
Yeah, that's a good point. Bellyache won't be taking a couple of losses in a row lightly, so he'll be making changes for sure. Mate, next 2 guys that I want to talk about are both Sharks, both on the same edge. We're talking about Ronaldo Mulitalo and Siosifa Talakai. Now, whenever I say Talakai, I don't know about you, but I just get the shiver down my spine. I feel like something bad's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Bit of Voldemort going on about Sifa Talakai.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Ronaldo Mulitalo first, because honestly, this is a sneaky pot option for people that are looking to go in a bit of a different direction than Val Holmes, Brian To'o, who are probably the 2 most owned in the premium category.
Yep.
He averaged 80 without Wade Graham on that edge.
Food for thought. It's a good start.
I mean, and obviously, look, his base is decent, but he's a guy that needs to score a try to make sure that he scores Supercoach points, which is, look, like most wingers. But he's going to get plenty of opportunity. We know that the Sharks love to play right to left. We know that Nico Hines love to find his way over to the left side of the field. We know that they prefer the right to left shift like most NRL teams do. There's relevance in Mulitalo with Talakai also on his inside demanding so much attention for that short ball. Mate, there's plenty of opportunity for Mulitalo if you're looking in there.
Yeah, I really like him. I got onto him last year, but much like Talakai, I got onto him at the wrong time, and I'd already I didn't play the game right last year. I burned a lot of trades early. I'm trying to do a bit more forward thinking this year. And when Wade Graham come back, it just absolutely killed Mulitalo and Talakai. And the coaches recognised it by the sounds of it. He's going to be playing down the middle, Wade Graham, I mean. Teague Wilton will be better there. We talked about him in our second row forward podcast. And I think there is merit to these guys. But I will wait and see, because you're paying a pretty premium for something that we aren't that sure about. And he is very try-dependent. There will be no base there. I think he's somebody that towards the end of the year, I'll be happy to have him in my team, because I can play him against in some matchups that I think that he's going to score really well against, and then sort of fade him some other weeks.
He's a guy that you want to play on matchups, I think, at the back end of the season. You'd be happy to have him on your team, and you just play him in favourable matchups where you know that the Sharks are going to score some points. And Sifa Talakai, so we talked about base stats not being there for Mulatalo. They're absolutely there for Talakai. A lot of people picked Talakai last year, not only for his upside on offense and attack, but for the fact that you know that you're going to get a pretty safe 40 to 50 without any work from Talakai. Which you did get, but people were expecting 160s because he put 160 on and a half that game or whatever it was, 150 and a half.
Actually, Morgan Harper has him in his Supercoach team, so...
Yeah, I would too if I was Morgan Harper. To be fair, Morgan Harper is probably scarred for life after Talakai ran over him about 3 times in that game. On the left edge, poor bloke. But no, another man that benefited from Teague Wilton being next to him. So he averaged 100 with Teague Wilton on his inside. So again, we're looking at Mulatalo and Talakai, and we know that edge is going to be better this year based on the fact that Teague Wilton's in and Wade Graham is out. And that's no discounting Wade Graham. We know he's a great player in his day, but I think it's come to a point now where they need to move on from Wade Graham and use him in a more tactical way.
I was actually super impressed with Wade saying that he was happy to take a step back and do what's the most important thing for the team. They should probably nearly have a premiership in their sights if they get the same Nico from last year as well. Really good team, the Sharks.
100%. Absolutely. I think they'll be a top 4 team again this year.
And here's a segue into teams that won't make the 8. The Dragons. Zach Lomax, 634K. The great news is he's a goal kicker. I'm just not sure if he'll get a chance to kick any week.
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
No chance. And look, Zach Lomax, we know he averaged 60 in a bad team last year. Dragons weren't good last year either, but to be fair, Benny Hunt put him on his back. I don't think he can do that again this year. I think they've got worse than they did last year, if that's even possible.
Yeah, and it's not even their fault. Like, everybody just sort of seems to get suspended and...
There's a bit going on over at Dragons headquarters as well, isn't there? There's a mudgy fight at 6 a.m. in the morning where the players don't remember because they were too pissed.
Honestly, that was the most fight they showed in any of their trial matches. So
I saw something on social media that said that maybe the Dragons should organise all of their games at 6 a.m. because that was the most fight that they've ever seen from a Dragons lineup. So I enjoyed that one.
We've talked enough about any Dragons player, I think.
I do like Zach Lomax, but it's absolutely no from me just because I know that the Dragons are going to struggle this year. But
if they're fine form and they're 490k again, because he was 480k last year and then got up to 630k because Ben Hunt was better. He was kicking goals. They were finding him. But yeah.
Let me sell you on this next guy.
All right.
Because I genuinely believe that people are sleeping on him. And it's Isaac Tungo from Penrith. Now, I feel like he's a really big pod watch at 3%. He's 627,000, so he's Brian To'o price. You can't pick both, right? So you need to pick one or the other. But there is merit to choosing Tungo this year, and I'll tell you why. The reason I like Tungo is because last year with Kikau on his left edge, inside him, he was the decoy man all year, right? When we think about what he averaged, I think it was 59 or something he averaged last year as a decoy. Right?
Yep.
So imagine what he can do as the guy on that left edge. I genuinely feel like Luke Garner is going to be that decoy this year. He's a really good line runner. So they're going to be asking him to do that a lot. And what they're going to do, and Luai's going to use this really well, is Luai's going to play out the back to Tungo, or they're going to sweep out the back. And Garner, they'll hit him short every now and again, but I think that the play will be to get the ball to Tungo with space, and either it'll be Taruva that cashes in on that left edge, or Brian To'o, or whoever plays that left wing. But Tungo's going to get a lot of either try contributions, try assists on that left edge, or tries himself, tackle brace, line breaks. There's a lot going down that left edge for Penrith. We know there is. And I feel like Tungo, being the decoy last year, will not be in that role this year because Luke Garner is in and Kikau is gone. What are your thoughts on Tungo?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying because they're asking you to pay 620 that he's just a really quality footballer. I'm just going to look for somebody that I can see being worth 750 if I'm going to spend 620. And I think your case is that he can. Like, you can only have so many Panthers in your team too. Like,
that's true, because you've got Nathan Cleary, right? And people are going with Brian To'o most of the time. You've got Luke Garner as well that's relevant. People are picking Sonny Luke at hooker. You've only got so many choices. You're right. That's a really good point.
Yeah, if Supercoach was a different game and you could just roll in with 5 Penny Panthers players, I would. I'm just too scared to do it. I just don't think it's a play. So
Yep. Mate, Micah Sivo surprised me. He scored 60 in 58% of his games last year, but has a 19 base, which is gross. I'm not picking a bloke that's 19 base with the run that Parramatta have early. That's tough. They've got a really tough run to start the season. So I'm saying Micah Sivo's absolute pass, and most are. 99% of the Supercoach community are saying the same thing.
Yeah, and I think, again, if you can see these wingers, I think the most important thing is watching where the wingers are going to play, who their matchup is. Like, Micah Sivo is a guy that could be 400k by round 10. He could be in the 300s. And then you get on, they've got a bit of a run. You're trying to downgrade Val Holmes from Origin. It could be a pod play later on in the year. And it's just, keep listening to our podcast and we'll find out who's going to get those good matchups.
There will be merit to taking him around 11 or 12.
Yep.
For sure. Mate, Brian To'o is the last person that's relevant on this list at 19%. He's got 36 in base. He's back to his preferred left wing. My concern is everybody says, preferred left wing. He had 1 year where he averaged 81, and that was in 2021 when the 6 again rule kicked back in and all the Supercoach points were elevated because teams weren't adjusting to that 6 again rule. Every other year, he's averaged between 55 to 60. So is there merit to fade Brian To'o at 19%, knowing that he is pretty highly owned, and go in a different direction with a little bit more upside?
I think there is, but I was looking for that second premium center wing, and I'm not having any of those other guys on the team before Brian To'o.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, just watch him play. Just watch him run. Watch him bust tackles. Maybe they won't use Crichton as much because he's leaving. Maybe they end up just using him a lot. I think if he's playing on the other side to To'o, which I suppose this other injury from Taylor May has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works there. I was going to wait and see till after their bye, but I'm just going to be starting with Brian To'o because I look at all these other 600k options. I can't find anybody I want between 480 and 540 either. It's just Brian To'o or a 350k cheapie, and I want to get some points on the boards. And even if he just gets 55 to 60, it's worth it for me.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, he's probably going to get 55 to 60. He averages 36 in base. There's no risk in taking Brian To'o thinking he's going to drop in price. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yep.
These last two guys, mate, in the premium realm we'll talk about, but it's not really overly relevant, is Daniel Tupou and David Nofaluma. Now, does Suwali on the left centre, when we're talking Daniel Tupou, does that hinder or help Daniel Tupou?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think there's just a lot of mouths to feed, and I wonder whether Suwali is good enough. It's going to come to two things. Whether Suwali is good enough that they're doubling him, which makes Tupou be open, or whether Suwali's just good enough to bust through and score and not even need him on the wing. I haven't really seen him play much in the centres. I look forward to it. I love watching Sualihi play. So,
yeah, I think it might help him. My opinion is it helps because we know Sammy Walker loves a three-man cutout. So with the amount of attention that's going to be drawn onto Sualihi, I think it makes sense that there will be a fair few overlaps for Daniel Tupou. And also imagine being Sammy Walker or Luke Keary and being able to just put a bomb up in the corner for those two. Someone's going to come down with it. It could be a bit of a lottery as to whether it's Tupou or Sualihi that comes down with it, but either or, there's going to be plenty of action.
I like it, and I like it better for draft, but I think I would just take Sualihi instead.
Yeah, he's 20k cheaper, isn't he? 15k cheaper.
Yeah.
And they're very similar owned. So, mate, David Nofaluma, Tiger Boy, back from learning how to win over in Melbourne for a few games.
I'll let you talk about him. Give me a sec.
I don't really have much to say. In saying that, though, I think with David Nofaluma, he's only 1% owned, 605k. Now, we knew back maybe a couple of years ago he was very Supercoach relevant. So he had a big base. He scored a lot of tries down the right edge. It was a favoured right edge of the Tigers. We've got Adam Dewey now that's dropped down to the right edge. So Adam Dewey working on that right edge with Johnny Bateman. And, I feel like there will be a bit more opportunity for David Nofaluma this year. I feel like he definitely improves, and we saw a little bit of that in the trial game the other day. It looked like he was back to his old self. So I'm pretty excited about David Nofaluma to have a bit of an uptick in workload this year down that right edge.
I think it'll be really good. I'm just looking at it from a Supercoach perspective. 600k is just too big of a risk. We're talking about him in premiums, where he's probably a mid-ranger for me.
Yeah, for Classic, it's a wait and see. But I drafted him personally in the recent draft that we did. I'm not upset about it because I think I might have got him around 6 or 7. So he's definitely a guy that I'm watching.
I got him like round 9 in a league. People were sleeping on him.
That's a massive win.
Yeah,
that's a massive win. Mate, the players we haven't talked about in the premium realm, Taylor May out for the year with an ACL. Hopefully he has a quick recovery and we see him again next year after he serves his too much suspension. What a shambles that was. Lucky the NRL that delayed that suspension for him. That seemed to work out well for them. We've got Sione Katoa, who I feel like is probably not going to have as much relevance as Ronaldo Militalo at the Sharks this year, but we'll see how we go. Stephen Crichton, again, leaving, I don't think helps. He's got a full year in a team. He knows he's leaving at the end of the year. And then we've got Jesse Ramian, who I called my Smokey when we talked about the Sharks earlier in the season, and I still do think that, but I don't think he's a guy that you're looking at to start the season with. There's too much risk there.
No, I agree with you. So, I think if I was the Sharks, I'd be going to the other side. So,
yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our mid-priced maniacs, mate. That's between 400 and 600k. Now, to bang through these a little bit quicker, we're going to do 2 rounds of rapid fire. Yep. 2 rounds of rapid fire. I'll start with the first 5, and then you hit me with the last 4. Okay? So basically, I'll shout them out. You let me know what you're considering, or if you have thoughts. It's yes or no, basically, for these guys. We've got Lockie Miller, 593,000, 7% owned.
No, he's played 6 NRL games ever.
Fair shout. We spoke about him, Joseph Suaalii, 17.9%, 590,000.
Yeah, I like it. I could find a way. He could find his way into my team come Thursday.
I like it as well. He seems to be quite popular because we know what he did on the right edge last year. Just a little bit concerned that shift to left centre might affect him a little bit initially and benefit Tupou, but we'll just see how the year plays out. I don't think that there's too much uncertainty there for me. Dane Gagai, 589,000.
Yeah, no, he's a dud. No. If this was State of Origin Supercoach, somehow he's prime turbo. So
he's a gun at State of Origin, isn't he?
Yeah.
He averages 34 in base, which is the highest out of the mid-price maniacs we're going to talk about now. So 34 in base is pretty solid. That's 2 less than Brian To'o.
If he was 500, if he was a bit cheaper, I would look at it with that base because I feel like it's no risk. But yeah, no, definitely not.
Yeah, there's way too many good options. Mate, your boy, Selwyn Cobbo, 10%, 586.
Big fan. If he's playing fullback, I'll definitely have a chop at him, I think. Depending on where we are in the season. He's going to play Origin. He's 586k. I think if I'm looking for someone around that 580k, I'm looking for a bit of buy coverage and a to cover that Origin period. And I think I'd just go elsewhere.
Yeah. Fun fact, he scored more than 100 in 11% of his games last year. So that when he goes on a run, he scores a try or 2, he's locked in for a ton.
He goes it for a 3 or 4 game streak too.
Yeah, he does. 11% of games, that's crazy. How many in the 26 game season? That's at least 400s, isn't it?
Mate, he's only 22. 20 as well, sorry.
Bit of a Greg Inglis mould, isn't he? I saw something saying that the progression of players or similarity of players, and we saw Greg Inglis into Latrell Mitchell into Selwyn Cobbo.
Yep.
Is like the perfect progression of what Greg Inglis left on the field and who's kind of picked up that very similar mould of play.
Yeah, we are paying him.
Very exciting.
I wonder whether the news of us losing Herbie and that, we are paying him fullback money, so we are going to need him to score a lot of points. So.
That's right. I mean, you've gone and bought Reece Walsh. So it's interesting to see you're paying him fullback money, but you've gone and bought a fullback. So who knows what happens there?
We did get Reece Walsh pretty cheap.
You did, because he wanted to come back.
Yeah.
So that played into your favour. Mate, Greg Marju, 581,000. I haven't even put ownership percentage here because he's that low.
Okay. Up or down for Greg Marju. This is a tough one. I am down on him, but only because of the price.
I'm high on Marju.
Yep.
I think the only thing that's going to ruin Marju this year is his defense.
Yep.
And I feel like that will be the only reason he loses his spot this year. We saw in the trial, he made 9 tackle busts. He scored, I think it was 90-odd Supercoach points or something in that trial. The one advantage for him this year is that Kalen Ponga is playing 5'8", and he will be on that left edge. And Greg Marju, being a left winger, will absolutely benefit from Kalen Ponga being down that left side. So there's plenty of exciting things happening for Greg Marju this year. They bought him over from the Titans because they obviously know they've seen plenty of talent in him, but yeah, so much risk there because he's leakier than a sieve on defense. So I think there's going to be some issues there defensively that might find him out of the team this year.
I think it's important to note that they have they've bought him. They want him on their team, and they have the first 3 games that they play are elite. Like, if you get him in your team, you could expect a price rise in 3 weeks, move on. If I'm spending 600k at Centrelink, it's just for someone else.
Newcastle's run of games is the best 3 run of games to start the season as well. I don't have it in front of me, but they've got an incredibly good draw the first 3 games. But again, we need to remember that it's the Newcastle Knights we're talking about. We're not talking about the Roosters having a really good run of games. We're talking about the Knights. So,
Yep.
And with Ponga, we don't know whether Ponga's going to make it through 3 games. Let's face it, which is sad, but it's the truth.
It's hard. You're talking about this elite run of games, but we would talk about an elite run of games if people were playing Newcastle as well.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Mate, they came up very, very bright green in nearly every single draw predictor that I've seen. So, it's a watch for me.
Yeah.
But I'll be watching very closely on Marju. Sorry, I've kind of spoken a bit too much about him.
No, that's all right.
Murray
Do you want
Murray
me-
to Alungi.
No, I'm going to play the game now.
Yeah.
No, you tell me
Oh,
about
yeah,
Murray
your
to
turn.
Alagi.
I don't mind him. Pot option for me. But you're not taking him instead of Val. That's the difference. Cowboys draw is nice, 5% owned, but I feel like there's too many good options. So, fade for me.
Yeah, yep. All right, let's go. The Fox, Adokar, 12% owned, 530k.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
20 base. Needs tries. Bulldogs will get better, but no, not to start the season. They're going to start slow.
I think this is price-wise. That's nearly the point that you look at him, though. Like we're not talking.
Nah.
They're asking you to shell out more for Greg Marzu than Josh Adokar.
Greg Marju is a tackle-breaking base stat beast. Josh Adokar needs to score 2 tries to score 70.
Yep,
That's my logic behind it.
that's fair.
So no to start, but watch, very close watch when the Bulldogs get it together down the left.
Speaking of sometimes maybe good, Katoni Staggs, 511k.
I drafted him.
Oh, did you?
I drafted him. Yep. He's my 3rd centre wing. In 13% of games, he scored more than 100. So we know the ceiling is there, but the base really isn't. He's got a 27 base, which isn't horrific, but it's obviously not great either. It's just a high risk, high reward play. So if you just want to get a bit spicy and you're a Broncos supporter or whatever, and let's remember also that this guy last year had an injury and carried a shoulder injury through the majority of the back end of the season. So he's come out saying that he's healthy now. I don't mind. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes for Katoni Staggs, but it comes with an asterisk that you're picking Val Holmes and Brian To'o first before you pick Katoni Staggs at centre wing 3.
Yeah, I think we nearly went this the wrong way because I want to chime in about Katoni too. 24 years old. Broncos score most of their points out wide. He's the cheapest out of Herbie Farnworth, Selwyn Cobbo, Corey Oates.
There's an argument. There's an argument.
There
to
is
take
an
in.
argument, and
I feel like he's underpriced.
Yeah, so do I. But that's because he has a 24 in him. He has.
I think you've got to ride the wave with him, though. Like, if you're picking guys like the next guy that we're going to talk about, you're picking Staggs, you're picking Josh Adokar, you're picking these guys with massive ceilings but very, very low floors. You've got to ride the wave with these guys. You've got to accept the fact that you're going to get a 10, but you're going to get 120, and then that's a 60 average at the end of the year.
All right, tell me about Xavier Coates.
No, only because he is Josh Adokar from Wish, and the Storm. I mean, look, the argument for Xavier Coates is that the Storm have a really nice draw around 2, 3, and 4. They've got the Bulldogs into Gold Coast into the Tigers, so that could be a nice place to pick him up after he gets through round 1. if he shows me in round one that he's going to do something for me. But otherwise, no, not at that price. I mean, Xavier Coates at, what was it, low 300s last year to start the season?
Yep.
That's a yes, because you know that there's so much upside there. He can basically just fall over the line once and make you 200K, but not at 466,000.
So we had a couple friends and we just played. There was just the four of us. We got stuck with COVID away. We started getting really into Supercoach, and my wife had Xavier Coates, and she just went and captained him all the time because it was just, she would see the previous week and he scores 100 points, but yeah, you just find when he rolls out that 14 against a good team or something, you're just shaking your head, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. You are.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I don't know what your wife is doing, but it's very bold of her to take Xavier Coates every week as the captain.
Oh, she goes to Broncos games. It was one of the names she knew. So
Fair call. Okay, all right. I'm with her on that. She had Billy Walters as well at some point, didn't she?
yeah, she did. She captained him a few times too. The spice was
Love
there.
that. That's outstanding, mate. That covers the mid-priced maniacs. We've got through about 9 players there, mate. So let's move on to the cheapies. We've already covered on Paul Alamotti, Khan Pereira, Jack Howarth in the 2RF pod. We're not going to talk about him again. Chance Nickel-Klokstad and Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. We've already covered all of them. We're not going to touch on them again, but they're 5 very well-owned cheapies. There's a few on this list. Let's play rapid fire again, because otherwise it's going to take us about 40 minutes to get through these guys. Do you want to kick us off?
All right.
And then I'll take through the tail end. So you can take the first 7, and then I'll take the last 7.
So you're going to hit me with them?
Yep, I'll hit you with the first 7. Charlie Staines, 378,000, 6% owned.
Grass Stains. Don't have him in my team. Did have him in my team because I was excited that maybe he was going to play fullback. Dane Laurie's going to be playing. I expect Dane Laurie to be playing fullback and Charlie Staines to maybe not even have a run. There could be some cheap options in the Tigers. Charlie Staines isn't one of them.
Yeah, the only risk with Charlie Staines, I think, and I mean, look, I don't see him in this round 1 team either. I see there's Tommy Talau, obviously, but also Junior Tupou, who's very impressed in that second game. So I reckon he could easily snake that position away from Charlie Staines now that Ken Mamalo's injured. So definitely one to watch, but too awkward of a price with no base and a small body. I feel like there's not enough relevance there. And I'm a Tigers supporter as well. I want the guy to do well.
Yep.
I just don't think it's going to happen. Hayes Perham, 370K, 14%. Everyone was high on this guy.
I was, and I watched him have flashes in that Indigenous game, and I was really excited for him. I think I tweeted that I was starting a Hayes Perham fan club. But then just watching him play in the other games, yeah, I'm not that high on him now. I actually am just not sure that he's up to first grade, even if he's playing fullback. I think the signing of Crichton shows that he's a stopgap for now. And I could see Avarillo filling that spot in 3 or 4 weeks if he doesn't perform. And the great thing about trades is, and him being 370K, it's not hard to get in a 370K bloke if he blasts a 60. I'm going to be burnt, because if I spend 370K, he's going to have to be in my team. If he scores 20 the first week, I'm going to be a lot more pissed off. Is if he scores a 60 and an 80, and I have to get him in my team. I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Risky play because he's a very flashy player and could be good, but Avarillo's sitting there waiting for him to fuck up, really. So Avarillo could easily just slot into Hayes Perham's spot at fullback, and Hayes Perham ends up out of the team.
I'd probably rather have Avarillo in my team, honestly.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Mate, Sean Russell, 366K. I think the one thing with Sean Russell, I've got a contact at Parramatta, luckily enough, that tells me a little bit about Hayes Dunster being or struggling in the centres, which is the reason why he'd be a wing only. So I think if Sean Russell plays, he can play anywhere. I think that's the versatility is his biggest downfall, I think, at Parramatta. So unfortunately with Hayes Dunster, he's one of those guys that will be first named out because he isn't as versatile as Sean Russell. So I think Sean Russell is the better pick if you're looking at one of either him or Hayes Dunster. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Sorry, I'll cut you off.
Yeah, no, go for it. I'm just thinking, let's just talk about Hayes Dunster while we're here.
Where we can do that.
He's 234k as opposed to the 366k. I obviously think Sean Russell is maybe a better option than Dunster, but that 230k and being able to maybe get a gun from instead of a mid-range or something is really important. How many games do you think that Dunster will be in the lineup? Like, I think he's probably there week 1, but you've got Sevo and blokes like that waiting in the wings.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think if Micah Sevo is named, I don't think that he gets named. I don't. If Micah Sevo lines up on the wing, I don't think Hayes Dunster ends up in the team. It's as simple as that. I think it'll be Sean Russell that gets the gig over him on the wing for Bailey Simonson. And then when Bailey Simonson gets named whenever he comes back from his injury, I'd say probably less than 4 weeks, we'll see him out on that right wing and Sean Russell will end up out of the squad. So there's plenty of risk and a lot of job security issues for both.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of people will be ripping apart their teams, maybe with a 230k bloke. Yep. Maybe he's had a price rise, but you're still going to have to find 100k to find a guy that's going to play footy. So,
yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Mate, next guy, Isaac Thompson from the Rabbitohs, 336,000, 14%.
I really like him. He has been in and out of my lineup the whole time. These first 6 games worry me, and Tane Milne worries me.
That's right.
For some reason, they like him.
Yeah, I honestly feel like if he has a decent enough start to the year, he'll hold that spot. I don't know whether they're high on Milne. I feel like Milne would have pissed them off last year at the back end of the year with that double sin bin and all those other issues, disciplinary reasons. So I feel like if Isaac Thompson starts well enough, he'll be okay.
Yeah, if he starts well enough for the Rabbitohs, he'll be in my team.
Yeah.
But just not week 1. I think there's too many question marks. I'm going to wait and see what they do with Tane first.
Next guy, Remus Smith, mate, 316,000, 13.8%.
Anybody playing for that Storm, I get a little bit excited about. But then you look into how Remus Smith has scored before. Like, he's a bloke we all know, and he's played a lot of games, and he just doesn't score a lot of points. What makes us think that it's going to be different this year?
He played 9 games last year, didn't break 60 once.
Yeah. And
Not
that's
once.
playing for the Storm. Like, they roll teams.
I'm not a fan of him at all. I called him a bust. I still do. He's not in my team. There's no way I'm looking at him. A guy that can't break 60 Supercoach points at centre in one of the best teams in the competition. What makes you think he's going to improve this year? Nothing.
Yeah, that's my question mark.
Yeah. Tommy Talau, 301,000. Pretty popular, 12%.
He's been in my team. You put him on my radar, being a West fan, and I just haven't liked what I've seen, really. I think that somebody else is going to fill that role in not a very long amount of time. I think that they're going to be better. I think his defense looks terrible. He's young, and I'm really glad that they said in that he played a shocker that first trial.
He did.
And I'm really glad they didn't just drop him because he is young, and obviously they think a lot of him. I just can see him being a bit of a trap.
Yeah, him and Sean Bloor sit in the same category because they're both coming back from really long-term ACL injuries. I think it was Talau's first game in 400 days or something, very similar to Sean Bloor. So you've got to cut him some slack. And also in that first trial game, they basically just targeted the 2 guys that are coming back from ACL injuries on that edge, and they just made them shuffle sideways, and they just really struggled. Look, I'm not too concerned about the defensive issues at this point in time, but I feel like it may be an issue. I think the one thing that saved him was the fact that Mamalo got injured in that second trial. That might save him.
Does that give him better job security?
Look, it probably makes it even harder to predict what's going to happen at the start of the season now because Mamalo ends up in that lineup. So what happens when he comes back? There's now more uncertainty, I think, around what that Tigers outside back lineup is going to look like now. Does Talau end up being the one that drops out? Does Junior Tupou end up proving that he's the good enough guy? Does Charlie Staines get a run? Yeah, there's a lot of question marks there. So Tommy Talau is risky, and he's a quality player, but I don't know whether I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I think there's too many question marks for me.
And last one for you, mate. Harley Smith Shields from Canberra at 300k.
No, he just doesn't look like he's going to be doing a lot. He's coming back from an ACL. Look, I know he's not a lot of money, but I still can probably see it regressing a little bit. Look, if he bangs out a couple of 60s, any of these 300k guys will be in my team. Smith Shields won't be starting in my lineup, and I'm looking for one of these 300k guys to just grab me because I have 300k. I want to be able to play them, but yeah, I hate the hammer. I don't like Tommy Talau. I don't really like this guy. I'm actually having a really hard time at centre wing.
Yeah, mate, that's your 7. Hit me with the last 7 of these cheapie options.
Tyrell Sloan.
Bad team, round 1 bye. Those are the 2 things that are steering me away from Tyrell Sloan, including the fact that he doesn't have a very high base. Yeah, there's a lot of red flags for me for Tyrell Sloan, so that's a no. 14% owned as well. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people just see that fullback and they want him in their team.
No, not me.
Yep. Cool. Hayes Dunster, we've touched him. Let me know if he is in your team.
No, he's not. No. 10.7% owned, he's not, but only because Sevo and Simonson are the wingers in this team. So it's only a matter of time. And also, I think Sean Russell's preferred in either of those positions because he's a bit more versatile than Dunster. So I feel like he's the first guy out. Even if he gets named in round 1, I'm not touching him because he's the first guy out as soon as one of those 2 return.
He has a bit of James Schiller about him, doesn't he?
He does. There's a lot of James Schiller about Hayes Dunster, unfortunately. So that's a no, thank you.
Valence Tavare.
He won't play in round 1, so no.
I think he looks really good, and I think he has a bit of that Cam Pereira about him. But yeah, he won't play round 1. He could surface throughout the year, though, so put him in your watch list. William Warbrick. Now, I'll just note that I've adjusted the Google Drive here. He is now 25% owned. When you looked at this, he was 7% owned. He's went up 18% in the last 5 days.
He's an All Black. He's a very big boy. He impressed in the trials. There is an open spot now with the Olam and the Iramia injuries at Melbourne Storm, so there is an open wing position, even potentially centre. Warbrick's in my team right now. 200k base price. The guy looks like he could chew up base stats for fun. He's going to get opportunity on the wing at one of the better teams in the competition. He's a guy that I'm not surprised at all why that's gone up to 25%. So that makes sense to me.
Why are all these people spending 315k for Remus Smith when this guy's there in the wings? Hey.
And I think, honestly, that's where the rest of that percentage will go to come round 1. If he's named on the wing on Team List Tuesday, everybody that owns Remus Smith at 14% or whatever it is will go straight to Warbrick, and Warbrick will end up 40% owned.
All right, let's move on to somebody who should be 0% owned. Bailey Hodgson at 9.7% owned and 200k.
He's injured, isn't he?
He's
injured. At the Knights.
He's injured, and they signed Lockie Miller when they thought that Bailey Hodgson was going to get the opportunity. He'd be in my team for 200k if he was playing fullback, like he first tried. But obviously they didn't think it was going to work because they brought in Lockie Miller.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's a no. No, thank you.
Burbo. Benny Trebojevic, 286k, 9%. I've seen him in a lot of teams. What do you think?
I think that these teams that have him, the 9%, are living in 2022, and maybe they forgot the season ended and he's about to restart. I think that's probably the only reason. Benny Trebojevic will not make the 17 for Manly, let alone be in the starting lineup. The edges and the wing look like Tuipulotu, Kohler, Brad Parker, Ruben Garrick at this point. So are they relying on an injury? Are they using him as enough? And I'd definitely advise against starting with enough, considering we've got buyers weekly now. Mate, no, Benny Turbo is a massive, massive trap, I think. He could easily end up being that guy on your bench that plays 9 games in the season, and you just can't get rid of him because he's too cheap.
Yeah, maybe they thought that they were getting Gerbo at centre wing. I'd be all in on that.
Get the names mixed up. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to fit Gerbo in there.
Jack Bostock. He's only 5.7% owned. I've actually been talking a bit off air with you about him. Let us know who he is.
Yeah, look, he's got a serious amount of talent, this guy. We saw it in the trials. He scored that try on the right edge when Milford put that grubber through, and it looked like it was just water off a duck's back, putting the ball down in the corner. So much talent. But him and Rob Jennings seem to be the ones contending for that right wing position at this point in time. I'm not quite sure whether I want to take a winger on one of the worst teams in the competition that will struggle to score points. It's the same argument as Hammer, or any edge or wing or centre in this Dolphins team. Tessie New, those guys. Like, I don't think you can consider a guy that's playing for the Dolphins that's going to struggle to score points in one of the worst teams in the comp. It's as simple as that. So yeah, it's a no right now, but honestly, there's many, many worse options in this lineup compared to him.
Especially when it's 200k, I feel like there's no real risk involved, but I think, and we're going to unveil our team soon, I think that there's 3 better 200k cheapies than Jack Bostock.
Yep, I agree. I have all 3 of them in my team as well, so we'll talk about them. But, mate, that takes us to the end of the cheapies. So much to talk about. There's a lot of guys we left out as well. And obviously, if you think that there's somebody that we left out that we should be talking about or that you want our opinion on, drop it in the comments. Let us know. We'll get back to you and have a chat about them. There
is a guy that we have left out, and I think it's really important because I know he's in my team and he might be in your team.
Yeah, it's a river.
Yeah, Taruva. We did our draft notes a little bit earlier, and we were aware of the Taylor May injury. But yeah, Taruva's a bloke that you should probably want in your team. Panthers want him in their team.
275,000 as well, so he's not expensive at all. Like you can get him cheaper than Chance Nickel-Klokstad, Isaac Thompson, all these popular 300k blokes. Hayes Perham, it's insane that we got blessed by the Supercoach gods that he got this dual position a week before the comp starts.
So I had Hayes Perham in my team, and I've dropped down to Taruva, and then who I think is a better option, and you have 100k to spend. He's played 3 NRL games ever, scored a 64, a 39, and a 9.
I think he's going to be pretty solid this year. He'll play on the right wing and will move to the left, but anybody who plays on a wing at Penrith Panthers, we know they're going to get so much opportunity. Imagine being on Cleary's edge at nearly basement price in the best team in the comp over the last 2 years. That's a godsend Supercoach-wise, so he's straight in my team.
He is. I actually... we're going to talk about it in a second, but I've Bizza and him. I'm actually rethinking Bizza now that I have Taruva, but I'm trying not to overthink it. I think the Panthers are going to score a lot of points.
Yeah, they will. I agree with that. I'm on the Taruva train for sure.
Let us know who is your 7.
Val Holmes, Isaac Thompson, Chance Nickel-Klokstad at the moment, a bit of a placeholder. I'm not 100% on him, but he's there for the time being until team lists. Senia Taruva, Paul Alamotti, Khan Pereira, and William Warbrick are my 7.
So we have a very similar lineup. The only thing is I have Brian To'o as well. So I've got Val, I've got Brian To'o. So I've got Val at 724. My second premium is Brian To'o at 624, who is a cheaper sort of primo player. Your Nickel-Klokstad, your Taruva, your Will Warbrick, your Alamotti, and your Khan Pereira. So that two primos, and then, saving a lot of money, trying to find some 300k guys that I can plug in and get some points out of.
Absolutely. I think it's key to be able to try and find as much cash as we possibly can with these positions. Mate, that pretty much wraps us up. We've gone through all the cheapies, all the mid-price maniacs, all of the primo options, and we've talked about the top 5 most owned. It's a very in-depth conversation around centre wing. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it, but I think we've tackled as many of them as we possibly can, mate. And
we're only by the time this comes out, we're only going to be 1 day away from Team List Tuesday, and all this could just be flipped on its head, couldn't it?
That's right, because Team List is going to determine whether these cheapies are relevant or not, or whether someone doesn't get named. You're obviously not going to pick someone who doesn't get named. So a lot could change in the next day, 2 days. So we'll see how that pans out. But guys, if you made it to the end of this episode, Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like, turn those notifications on, and follow us on Spotify or Apple if that's where you get your podcasts. And we'll continue over the next few days and into the season to talk about Team List Tuesday. We'll break down Team List Tuesday for you, and we'll do a bit of a weekly wrap-up every single week. So make sure to tune in and put those notifications on so you don't miss those. This has been the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Bye.